Welcome to Hometown Happenings. I'm Carol McCarthy here today with Mariah Rufer, and we are going to talk about the aquatic invasive species zebra mussels, which we're heading into summer now, and Mariah is going to kind of give us the 411 on what zebra mussels are, where they're found, some of the impacts, and what's being done to thwart these invasive species, keep them out of our lakes, or at least manage them. And Mariah, let's talk a little bit about zebra mussels. You work with R&B Labs, so you study local waters, and you've seen zebra mussels. They're now here in Pelican Lake, and we'll talk more about that later. But tell us what exactly zebra mussels are.
Yes, they're little mussels, which are, they look like little clams. And when they're young, when they're first infested, it's about 1/4 inch long, but as they grow to a year or 2 years, they're 1 to 1.5 inches long.
Okay.
So, and then the zebra name comes from the zebra stripes, which are these brown stripes on the shell.
Okay, and they're called aquatic invasive species because they are not native to our area lakes, and that's the big concern.
Mm-hmm. No, they're not native here, so they compete with the native mussels, and they win, and they take over a lot of the lake bottom.
Okay.
Force out the native species.
All right, so how do they get here?
They get here from mainly boats. Humans is the main source. They first came into Lake Superior from the shipping hulls, and they've spread from streams and lakes from there. And the problem with zebra mussels is that they have a larval stage that's very small where you can't see it with your eye. And that stage can hide in any water intake, your live wells of the boats, and if those aren't drained, then that water can transport from one lake to another. Minnow buckets is another source of that water.
Okay, and do they have, do they live a long time? Because if you transport, obviously, if you're going from one lake to another, they have a lifespan, don't they? That they are able to reproduce.
Yeah, as long as they are living in a moist environment, they can stay alive for quite a while. If they completely dry out, then they'll die. So if you have zebra mussels on a boat lift and you take it out for the winter, those ones are going to die over the winter if they're just sitting out on the shore.
Okay, all right. And so these zebra mussels can be transported as long as they're wet. Now, where are they found then? You said like the minnow bucket on the boat.
Yeah, the other different thing about zebra mussels is that they attach to hard surfaces. They have these little threads at the bottom that they just cement down onto a hard surface. So any cement blocks, dock legs, boat lifts, boats, anything that's sitting in the water that's hard, water irrigation intake pipes, they can go inside and clog that. So any surface that's hard, you'll find them.
All right. Mariah Rufer is my guest today on Hometown Happenings. We're talking about zebra mussels, an aquatic invasive species that is now in the area in Pelican Lake, and we're going to come back and talk more about the impact these have on our lake, on our economy, our environment, and when we return on Hometown Happenings. Welcome back to Hometown Happenings. I'm Carol McCarthy today with Mariah Rufer from R&B Labs. We're talking about zebra mussels and the problem they pose to our lakes. They're in our lakes now. They're in Pelican Lake, and they're an aquatic invasive species. They're not native to this area, and they pose a big problem for our lakes, for our economy. But Mariah, let's talk a little bit about, these zebra mussels are transported by boat, by ways, if you have water on your boat, any moisture in your boat, they're transported from lake to lake. They get into a lake, the little larvae get into the lake, very hard to see, and they just reproduce like by the millions.
By the millions. Once the water is, gets to a certain temperature, they'll just start producing millions of larvae, and they just swim around and develop until they are big enough to attach to a hard surface. And another way they spread is just downstream. They're in Lake Lizzie because they were in Pelican, and it goes right downstream. So chains of lakes, like how Pelican has a chain of lakes, then the one lake gets it, they go all the way down.
Now, you had some disturbing pictures at an aquatic invasive species summit recently. You had a minnow bucket. You also had a boat lift. You showed it at the beginning, before they were there, and then when they started. But these things just crust onto solid objects.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the problems that impacts. They can clog water intake pipes, so it's a big problem if you're using that water from the lake for irrigation. Also, just boats that are moored in the water all year round, the zebra mussels will crust onto the bottom and really hurt the paint, and also hurt the motor. So if you're on Pelican Lake, if you live on Pelican Lake and have a boat there, you want to keep it all the way out of the water so that they're not going to crust onto the bottom. Okay. Another problem is that the shells, once the zebra mussels die, those shells are still there and they wash up on the beach and they're very sharp. So the beaches can just become a little bit less desirable for walking.
And nobody wants to come to a beach with zebra mussels all over it and you cut your feet open. But also, you said that they eat the little zooplankton, or the what fish eat, and eventually they could upset our fishing industry. People coming up here to enjoy the lakes and go fishing, no fish in the lake because of zebra mussels.
Yep, it could affect the fisheries. Each lake's a little bit different, but definitely they're filtering those zooplankton out of the water, which takes away the food for the little fish. Little fish are the food for the big fish, so it just impacts on up the chain.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about some of the, we've talked about the problems. Let's talk about some of the solutions. What can people do to prevent zebra mussels coming in? What can they do? Obviously, monitor their lakes, their shorelines.
Yeah, there's, once you have zebra mussels, there's not a lot you can do right now. There are people working on treatments for it, so that is in the works. There's nothing that's available right now to use, but I do see that coming in the future. But if you don't have zebra mussels, it's good to avoid lakes that do, and if you're going from lake to lake, to make sure to drain your boat or let it dry for a few days. Power wash it, check it for any plant material, and you should be doing that anyway, anytime you move, because there's so many different things from zebra mussels to invasive plants that you can move back and forth.
Okay, and do you have to have a certain temperature of water to really kill the larvae? Or
the DNR recommends 104 degrees, so it's pretty hot. Yeah.
And I know that they are putting in a decontamination station at the Riverview RV park in their marina, and on future Hometown Happenings, we hope to visit them and just really show people what decontamination station is all about. And in the meantime, I know that the legislature is working on bills to kind of up the ante with the DNR and have more people out looking, and more penalties for people who don't wash their boats off and are transporting these zebra mussels. So we'll keep our eye on that as well. So some things happening with the legislation, and it's all due to the Aquatic Invasive Species Legislative Summit that was held in Detroit Lakes, in part, and our legislators working together with local folks. So. All right. Well, anything else to add today?
Yeah, one thing lakes can do too, if you're not infested, is to monitor, and you can do this with volunteers. You can get a cement block, since zebra mussels like to attach to hard surfaces, and put a couple of them out at your public boat accesses, and then you can have a few volunteers that go out and check those blocks every couple of weeks and just see if there's zebra mussels stuck on there. If you have a question about what they look like, if you've found them or not, go to the DNR office or to my office out on County Highway 6, and we'd be happy to just look at it and say, yes, it's a zebra mussel, or no, it's not.
All right, Mariah Rufer, very informational stuff here, and thank you so much for coming on Hometown Happenings.
Thanks.
And with that, check your boats, check your shoreline, and we'll see you next time on Hometown Happenings. I'm Carol McCarthy for TV3.